What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at the RG40xxV. This is one in a long line of handhelds that Anbernic has come out with this year with the same SoC. So you would think that doing a review on this handheld would be really easy, but I'm actually having a really hard time. Let's take a look. Before we open this up and take a look at it, I did get this device from Mac DIY. They've been doing a great job and really supporting the channel. So I just want to give them a big shout out. No, they're not going to see this video before I publish it. No, they have no input in what goes into the video, but they are nice enough to supply the handheld for us to do a review. And I'll throw a link down on my thingamabob that you can go check out if you want to get one of these handhelds. If you buy from Mac DIY, it helps support the channel, and I really do appreciate that. Now, let the unboxing begin. Here we have our typical Anbernic box. Looks like pretty much all of them do. This one is in the silver trim. I think we only got one or two in the gold trim ever, and then they went back to silver. Kind of an interesting little concept they got going on here. I'm not sure what that's all about. We will take a look inside if it wants to come out. Obviously, we have the unit right here. We do have an origami accordion, and there is an English and Mandarin side to this. This is going to go through how to use their operating system and some of the hotkeys that are available on that. Anbernic has actually been doing a really good job with their operating system lately. And as people have made updates to the operating system and different third-party ones, Anbernic has kind of followed suit lately and tried to add some of those features and things in. It's pretty awesome. I don't think we've ever seen a manufacturer in the space do that before. So definitely check out the hotkeys, especially if you're going to leave the stock OS on here. We also do have a Type-C cable that's right in here. It's A to C. Perfect. Let's take a look at the device itself. All right, here we have the Anbernic RG40xxV. We recently did one on the XXH. Now we got the V, another 4-inch. But this year is in a vertical form factor, and it is giving me all of the feels, and we're going to discuss that here in the video, and some of the pros and cons of this device real quick, and we'll get you on your way. But first off, let's go over the I/O. On the top here, we do have an HDMI out port, so if you want to consoleize this device is able to be consoleized. On the back here, we do have our shoulder and back buttons. They are very similar to the RG40xxV, where they're very, very touchy. I'm not sure how they didn't learn that. They don't have this problem on the 3.5s at all. I'm not sure why this is such an issue on the 4.0s. On the right-hand side over here, we do have our power, and we do also have our reset button. On the left-hand side over here, we do have our volume up and down switches, as well as a hole for our operating system card. I did pull this out of the box and do the OS update. That's why there is two cards in here. Typically, this will come with one 64-gig card, I believe. On the bottom here, we do have a USB-C hole and OTG hole, so it does both. It's a jack of all trades, and then we do have a 3.5 hole. And you guys almost have me convinced. In a previous video, I had asked about why you guys want to have headphone holes in all these, and I'm kind of seeing where you're coming from now, so I might try using wired headphones again. On the front here, we do have a 4-inch screen. We do have a D-pad here. We'll see if we can get it on the poker cam. This is probably like one of the best pivots and bounces of a D-pad. It's a little stiffer than the H, and it is one of the better D-pads I've ever used. On the right-hand side here, we do have our face buttons. Also, a good bounce. They respond and retract real quickly. They do sink in pretty well. Still enough space around. It kind of feel like little M&Ms with their candy coating that they got on here. We do have the menu button, start and select. Menu button does work on here, by the way. Start and select. And then we do have a single joystick, which is unique, along with the fact that it is clickable, and our front-firing speaker. Let's go over the specs real quick, and then we can jump into it. Here with our RG40xxV, we do have a Linux operating system. The display is a 4-inch IPS 640 by 480 with an Allwinner 700 processor. Same processor Anbernic's been using for pretty much all year on any of these mid-level devices of theirs. The GPU is a dual-core G31 MP2. It does have 1 GB of LPDDR RAM. The storage on here is a dual microSD with 512 support. Mind you, if you do put anything bigger than a 16 gig on the operating side, unless you have the 64 gig memory card in here already that came with it, you're going to end up with a card that you really can't use. Unfortunately, when you put the operating system on here, unless you do the build by Anbernic, it allocates the free space in the middle of the partitions, and you actually aren't able to move it. So for whatever reason, you can't move it. It's been this way for a long time, so you will grenade the rest of your cards. So if you use a 128 gig card, only 16 are going to be used, and the rest is going to be throwaway. The battery on here is a 3200 milliamp battery, which is 6 hours estimated battery life. I would say that I get at least 6, but I've been playing a lot of Game Boy and things like that on here. And the Wi-Fi on here is 2.4 gigahertz, and it does have Bluetooth 4.2. I don't understand why this doesn't have 5G Wi-Fi, but there isn't a lot of streaming stuff you're going to do, so it works for what I would need it for as far as retro achievements and things like that. Now that we got all the specs out of the way, we'll just go through this here real quick. So we do have a games room menu. The only thing I would use in here is PSP. I'm not sure why Sega Saturn's not in here. It should be, but for some reason there is no Sega Saturn in here because that does have a standalone as well. So this is where that's supposed to be. Don't know why it's not there. We'll get back to the Retro Art game menu here in just a second. We do have our App Center, and like all of these handhelds that you can get from Anbernic, there is a movie in the App Center. Just one, just to demonstrate, you know, what Anbernic's all about. But instead of it being a movie about Anbernic, it's once again about this handheld. There you can see the pretty white one. Again, there's a white and a blue, and then this really sexy black color. But that's your option for video in here. Now you can put your own videos on here. So if you want to use this as like a commuter device or something like that, you can do that. The other advantage of having a bigger screen here is that just like the 40xxH, you can read books on here with a bigger screen. So there is an advantage there as far as that goes. And then you can use this as an MP3 player. You do have your favorites menu. I have put a couple in here. You have a history. You have a search function. Search function works really well. That's how I figured out that Anbernic still isn't putting Mario back on their devices. You do have the ability though right now to go on the interwebs and be able to find Mario ROMs. So if you are into the Mario ROMs, right now might be the time to do it because there's an archive out there that just lost a legal case on books. So video games are probably going to be next. And then you do have a settings menu. Some weird things in the settings. It doesn't have a recognized gamepad on there. I'm not sure if that's because this is a review unit or if that is actually a problem with this. But if I go in to create some custom buttons or anything like that, like we'll do joystick, no gamepad, restore it, no gamepad, change my local buttons, custom buttons, there is no gamepad. Oh, it found a couple. Oh, it's not a touch. What am I doing? Not a touchscreen. Okay, so it does find the local gamepad. It just doesn't find the D-pad, the joystick, or anything like that. So I don't know what's going on with that. But again, it's probably because this is a review unit. So now we'll go back over here to RetroArch. They have actually included, so this is just the library that came with it, but they've actually included some more systems and games in here than they have in the past. We do actually have Sega Saturn in here now. I believe there's like one Saturn game maybe on the other ones. We do have like 5 now. They are all in Chinese, so you have to work your way through the menus, but they are fun games to play. We still do have this switch style joystick that Anbernic's been using that gets cardinal snapping. Kind of an advantage when you only have one joystick though. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's really good for N64. It feels like an N64 joystick, so the game feels more authentic. I know it sounds really dumb, but if you're using the system for N64, your gaming is gonna feel more authentic. Just a thought. Well, it's there. But you will be able to find it in things like Silent Scope. I'll show you here in just a second, but you can use the D-pad then in order to hone in, which is kind of how I've always played that game anyways. The D-pad on this thing is absolutely phenomenal. Got such a great D-pad. It's got the right touches, man. This has to be the best D-pad we've felt, or I've felt, out of any handheld this year so far. The Odins have pretty good D-pads too, but this is definitely Anbernic's best D-pad, and it feels probably the closest to the DMG that I've felt so far. It does have a good post in it too, so you are getting a good pivot. You're not seeing a whole lot of misdirection or misinputs, and you're not seeming to miss any inputs. So kudos to Anbernic for making a great D-pad. The one on the H was pretty good too, and I knew they weren't going to stick with that one, but at least they upgraded it this time, because the H was pretty good, but this is a little bit better. What happens normally is when we start to like something of theirs, they get rid of it. So thank you, Anbernic, for keeping this. The buttons on this tend to be a little bit taller than the H. They are a little bit taller than the H, but they still have that candy coat and they still feel really nice to the touch. Fun to press. On the back here, these bumpers and triggers are terrible, not because of the way they look or feel, because they look and feel great. Similar to the RG40xxV, they're so touchy you could sneeze and it will hit the button. The reason being is you can actually touch them anywhere on it. So that's how sensitive they are. They're actually able to just lightly touch the tops. Now there is a fix for this. If you want, I can make a video on how to fix this. It takes about 4 minutes and it's just 6 screws and a couple little pieces of tape and you can fix this bad boy. Not a big deal, but I don't know why Anbernic is making me fix something for them. I kind of feel like I'm going to the grocery store and the self-checkout. Like I'm not saving any money and I'm doing all the work myself. So I don't understand what's going on there. Oddly enough, I've had the 35XX Plus since the day it came out. I rarely ever pick it up. I found that I've always go to my Mio Mini Pluses first. Part of it is Onion OS. The other part of it is I have got this comfort for those devices because I've been using them so long and I've upgraded enough stuff on them that they're easy to use. I did similar things to this as well, thinking that maybe that would get me to come over and use this, but it really hasn't. They both have Wi-Fi, which I really just want for retro achievements, and even with the custom firmware they've come out for the 35XX Plus, I haven't found an advantage of that yet over the Mio Mini Plus. Not enough where it makes me want to change anyways. But this here, my surprise, similar to the 40xxH, is just visual. This is so nice. I can read the text, which I can't on the 35XX Plus. On here, you can actually read the text on the screen, which is phenomenal, especially when you're playing games where like maybe it has English captions, but it's not in English, so you actually need to read so you know what the storyline is. You're actually able to read it on here, which I was not able to do very well on the 35XX Plus. Now that might be because I'm getting old, but that's nor here nor there. The text shows up much better here on the RG40xxV. Now, the other thing that's crazy about this, and the reason why I was having a hard time making this review, is I can't seem to put this thing down long enough to make the review. Every time I pick it up, I want to play games on it. It just has that nostalgia feel to it, and these screens, almost edgeless, so you get immersed into the device. If you play something like a Game Boy Color game like I am here, you get the bezels that actually kind of bring it down to make it feel more like a Game Boy Color. Like, it feels like I'm playing the correct device. This is something I never even got out of the Analog Pocket. Not to mention this will emulate more. Now, the Analog Pocket does have a nicer screen than this, but it's also 5 times more expensive. Can't even remember how much those things are anymore. Very, very much more expensive, where most people just end up emulating on it anyways and not actually using the FPGA portion of it. This is a better bang for your buck. You have a higher value on return here. I would argue that this screen is better just for the way that it's laid out. Now, you can make these kind of tweaks with the Analog Pocket, but here you don't have to. Anbernic already did it for you. And I feel like when I'm looking at this, that I'm literally looking at a Game Boy Color, and it feels a lot like a Game Boy Color, especially the color, because they did use transparent shells on them. It definitely feels a little bit more like a Color than a DMG. It's very lightweight. It's very well distributed. Also, they did move the CPU to the top behind the screen. It's no longer getting hot where your hands are. So they're actually keeping all, it's not even getting warm up here, but they're keeping all the heat up on the top here now. So it's keeping it away from your hands so your hands aren't starting to sweat, which has been an issue with some of the Anbernic handhelds before. This is the first one that they've made that decision, and it was a well worth decision. I know people have been complaining about this for the last year with these Anbernic devices, and this was a good move on their part. When it comes to Anbernic, unfortunately, I think I've got it whittled down to my favorite 3 devices these days, and we'll talk about that in the closing. In the meantime, let's go through a little gameplay here, and we'll talk to you on the other side. So here's my takeaways with the RG40xxH. It's not a touchscreen, but I keep touching the screen because it's so big and shiny. I want it to do something, but it never does. Like I said at the beginning, the joystick, it is what it is. I think it works fine for Linux. I think if this was an Android handheld, like the problems we had in the Cube, be a different conversation. I think it's doable here. As far as these back buttons, they're gonna need to get fixed. I'm gonna fix them up myself. If you wanna learn how to do that, let me know it out in the comment section. I'll make a video, just a quick one, on showing you how to fix these bad boys. Not gonna be real difficult. Overall, this is my favorite vertical handheld to play right now, and I just can't stop playing games on it. I've been playing on this thing for 2 days now, and I just haven't got my video up because all I've been doing is playing video games. So I'm doing the video now just so you guys have an opportunity to get one of these right away if it's something that you're looking at getting. And again, I got mine thanks to Mech DIY. Again, I'll put a link down on my thingamabob. They really do support this channel, and they've been more than stellar. So please, if you do want to get one of these, at least take a look over there and see if maybe it's something you're interested in getting from them. If nothing else, my experience with their customer service has been great. So I'm not only a reviewer, I'm also a client. It doesn't work as good as they heard for me. men commercials. No. With the bigger text on here than the 35XX Plus and some of the other features, the Plus, I always felt like, I know it's weird to have a single joystick, but we really only need one joystick. Even like PlayStation 1, they didn't get the joystick till midway through the cycle on that. The original controllers didn't have joysticks, so those games are going to play just fine with or without. This definitely gives you an advantage on some of those. And then if you want to play some PSP games, and there's a few that are kind of fun to play even on a vertical handheld, you are going to be able to have that joystick to be able to do that, which is leaps and bounds better than not having a joystick. I know you can turn your D-pad into sort of a joystick, and the one on the 35XX Plus is loose enough where it's not terrible when you do that, but it's better just to have the stick to begin with. And sticks really sucked back then too, so I mean, this is pretty much the experience you're going to have then. So again, more authentic. Would I recommend this device with the wonky joystick and the jacked up shoulder and trigger buttons? Absolutely. I absolutely love this thing. It is freaking crazy. It really is a game changer. And for me, like, I don't mind the 3.5-inch screens normally, but I don't realize how much I am missing because I have such a hard time reading, and I can play them less time. Now, granted, these I don't usually, with handhelds like they sit down and hack on them all day long, but I have found that I've been going 2 or 3 hours on this, and I've never done that. Usually I'm playing maybe 15-20 minutes between things. I have no problem sitting down and emulating with this, and I think it's just because you can get so immersed in it. Like, usually that experience is wrecked by all the crap around the outside, and here you can just get sucked right into the screen. It's phenomenal. So yes, I would absolutely recommend this, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who's used all of these that won't. It's a little disappointing that it is still an H700. Now, we're now 2 handhelds after they said they weren't going to come out with them anymore, but my favorite handhelds now have become this. I do really still like the 40xxH. It's kind of a wash, but this one here I do get more immersed in, so I think that part is better. Comfort-wise, I've been using a horizontal style handheld pretty much ever since before I got into retro gaming, and now we're back to getting some vertical. So between these two and then the Flip, I carry this SP with me everywhere I go. So what do you think of the RG40xxV? Did you order one already for yourself or for somebody else? Do you have questions? If you do, I'll try to answer them down in my comment section. One thing I didn't touch on is there's already custom firmware for this. Obviously not running custom firmware with this first look review, but we can take a look at that in the future as well. That is the beauty of sticking with that H700 chipset. With that same SoC, it was a very easy transfer for a lot of these guys to get this up and running on custom firmware. So if you're not a fan of Anbernic's, which is far better than it used to be, you do have some custom options. That's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing is actually what mostly helps grow this channel. And don't forget to subscribe. There are a couple videos here for you at the end that YouTube is recommending that you watch. If you enjoyed this video, take a look at one of those videos, or both of those videos, even better, and subscribe to the channel, because you will continue to get videos like this. Some of them may be even better. You never know. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!